This is a key theme we are going to look at today. And I really want to make sure that other people have this available if they want to. So I'm also going to open up the chat box because I want your participation. So I'm going to tell you a story, and I want you to write some things in the chat box for me. And this is a hypothetical story based on reality, of course, but it helps us to understand how the mind works, and it illustrates the point I want to talk about today. So imagine that I have a phone call from a very large pharmaceutical company, and they ask me to join them on Zoom to talk to them about teaching mindfulness to their population, their staff. And I talk to them on a Zoom call, and there are 3 or 4 of them on the Zoom, and they ask me really good questions about mindfulness, and they ask me about the scientific evidence for mindfulness, and they ask me about my qualifications to teach mindfulness, and we have a very nice chat. And a week later, I haven't heard from them, so I drop them an email saying how much I enjoyed talking to them, and could they let me know how they'd like to proceed. And I get a very cursory 1-line email back saying, oh, we've decided you're the wrong teacher, or we're not going to work with you. Okay, so could you just write one or two words or a very short sentence in the chat button about what sort of things you think would go through my mind, what sort of things I would say to myself if that sort of thing happens to you. So if you go for a job interview and you don't get it, or you go out on a date and you think it's going well, and the person you're seeing doesn't think it's going so well and doesn't want to see you again, just tell me about what is the chatter in your mind, what happens in those circumstances where you basically don't get what you want, or it doesn't quite go as you anticipated. Initial feelings of rejection and can be unpleasant. Thank you. Yep. What else? Why am I not good enough? Great. Thank you. Yeah. Why wasn't I good enough? Yep. Yep. Yeah. I'd want some type of feedback first. Oh, very cognitive. Thank you. Yeah. It's not very often people are prepared to give you feedback, just by the way. when you don't get a job, you don't get feedback, is my view. But yep. What else? What other things? What else would you think? I wonder what went on there. Yep. What else? Anything else from anybody? Disgruntled? Yep. Yep. Was it my qualifications, or they did not like me? Was my perception distorted by my hopes? Yep. Absolutely. Anything else? Okay, so yeah. And then we've got an oh, what the WTF and an emoji. Thank you. That's brilliant. It's really good. So what we have just explored, and this happens to us all the time, is this idea that something happens in our life, and then our mind makes up a story about what happened. And in some of the philosophies that we touch on in mindfulness. This is known as the first and second arrow. So the first arrow is the pain of not getting the assignment. So the pain of the first event. And then the second arrow is the pain that you cause yourself through rumination, through the stories, through the recriminations. I don't know about you, but when I really care about something, I will lie in bed and I will replay the conversation and I will imagine if I'd said something differently. So, you know, instead of talking about my qualifications endlessly, I will replay the scenario where I have the presence of mind to talk less about myself and more about the benefits, for example. You know, so I not only have the pain of not getting the assignment, I then cause myself additional pain by rerunning the scenario, rerunning it backwards, forwards, changing it, berating myself for not doing it better, berating myself for not being different, berating myself for being completely imperfect. And this is the second pain. So first and second pain is understanding that concept is central to the idea of more happiness, because clearly the first pain is what we can't do anything about, but the second set of pain, and usually, by the way, that is much bigger. That's the problem, is the assault, or the way we assault ourselves is much bigger and much more damaging and much more hurtful than actually what's really happened. And it's the self-talk and the way we speak to ourselves that is really very harmful in these circumstances. So the mindfulness practice is designed to help us to separate these two things. And it's really hard, it is hard work, because that 1-2 thing is so quick. It's so difficult to separate the two things. And especially with physical pain, it's really difficult to pull the two together, two things apart. But it is possible, and it's really very possible to examine pain as a series of physical sensations, something that is actually just happening, without the proliferation around that of, you know, this is the end of my physical well-being, or this is the end of my adult strength, or my ability to run long distances forever impaired by this. Especially if you've had, say, a major injury and you've been quite athletic, the story or the proliferation that goes around it is really harmful, really hurtful. You know, when will I be well again? Will I ever be well again? Will I ever be able to do what I used to do? And I bring this up particularly because one of the teachers I work with, he's a big hairy biker bloke, and he suffered a very, very serious back injury. And as a result of that back injury, his belief in himself as a capable, competent, virile, healthy male, you know, a worthy specimen, a husband, a provider, you know, he rides a bike, you know, he's very manly. And he speaks very well to this point, that all of this was called into question. All of this came up because of physical pain, because his back just really collapsed. And as a result, he watched his ability to do things that he always felt that he was supposed to be able to do. And he literally did spiral out of control. You know, his pain levels went through the roof because, of course, as he's got all this agitation, all the muscles go into spasm. He's holding himself very tight. He doesn't sleep very well. That causes this sort of whirlwind, this sort of cyclone of sensations. So as his pain escalates, the mental proliferation escalates, his sleeplessness increases, his sense of well-being diminishes, and it all gets caught up in a tight knot. And for David, this went on for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years maybe. And he really tells the story of quite a remarkable sort of undoing, you know, unwrapping the onion of pain when he finally came to mindfulness after, funnily enough, people had told him for a couple of years, you know, mindfulness will be really helpful. And of course he'd gone, you know, what's the mind got to do with it? This is my back. You know, I need a new back. And people said, look, you can't just whip your spine out and replace it. So while you've got to live with this, why don't you go and learn some mindfulness? And he has managed through many years of practice now that he's on half the painkillers that he's been on at his maximum. He's really reduced his painkillers. And he can honestly sit and he can tell you where the pain starts and where the pain stops. You know, so he can absolutely microscopically tell you that's the pain right there. But right next door, no pain. And all the other pain is in my head. All the other pain is of my making. So this is an extremely powerful lesson in mindfulness. And it really opens up possibilities for ourselves to understand literally how we can help ourselves and how occasionally we harm ourselves. You know, that's not to say, by the way, I'm not a believer that, you know, we have disease of our own making. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that whatever we have, whatever comes our way, and it doesn't necessarily need to be physical, as we say. This could be just a knockback in our emotional or intellectual life. But whatever we have, whatever life throws at us, it's not, we can't stop that. You know, it's not that we can hold up our hands and say, no, we don't want that difficulty. That difficulty is not coming towards us. Every day, in all sorts of ways, there's difficulty. And it's what we do about it, how we let go and don't proliferate and don't agitate and don't energize that difficulty. What we do is we energize around fantastic, positive, healthy, happy things. And we just de-energize all that negativity. And I realize as I say this, it's sounding all voodoo, and I really don't want to make it sound that way. I really want you to understand this is completely straightforward understanding of the brain and what it does. So the brain is sticky, and it gets very sticky when we don't get what we want, and it's like Teflon when we are having a nice time. And what we want to do is we just want to flip it around, make sure that when we're having a nice time, we really absorb that, we really know that, and we don't proliferate around difficulty. So welcome to first and second arrows. So we're going to drop into practice. We'll be in practice for about 20 minutes. So really make yourself comfy. If you want to lie down, please do. And if you want to sit up, make sure you're sitting in a way that's supported. Sometimes on these chairs, it's nice to have a lower back cushion or something, just to help support the back. So I notice I've been sitting quite a lot this morning already, so I'm just propping myself up so that I've got some support. Okay. So first move in and down. And start the practice in the same way as we started before, by doing an audit. So the question for this audit is, what was helpful about that idea of first and second arrow for you? What new seeing have you had, or how does it strike you for yourself? Where are the places in your life where you see yourself doing this? These are private reflections, they're not going to be shared. So be as honest with yourself as you need to be. And when you're ready, just spend the next few moments getting yourself grounded. So in whatever way you have found over the last few weeks works for you, the sense of being anchored is incredibly important. So we're going to just practice today, giving ourselves some space around the mishaps in our life. So that might be big things like physical pain, such as described with David. It might be small things such as just bad words with our partner this morning. It might be career disappointments, such as I described, not getting an assignment that I wanted. Other little mishaps that have been around us. So, I'm going to encourage you to really stretch yourself to do this, because it's not something we do quite naturally. So firstly, what gift or forgiveness would you like to give yourself? And whatever comes up, just soak on that. What's the first gift or forgiveness you'd like to give yourself? Number 2, what second gift or forgiveness would you like to present to yourself? Again, whatever comes up, just soak on it. Bring it into your consciousness and receive it as a gift. Third, what third gift or forgiveness would you like to present to yourself? So don't embark on this as an intellectual exercise. This is something that's just around against the missteps of life. What soothes you, what comforts you, what helps you, what supports you, and are you able to give it to yourself? Are you able to have the freedom to do that for yourself rather than relying on external factors? And whatever comes up, remember to soak on it. So, fourth one. What fourth gift or forgiveness would you like to present to yourself? So this is all about permission. What permissions do you need to give to yourself so that you can live more fully in the world? And the fifth permission, what gift or forgiveness would you like to present to yourself? So bring all 5 gifts to mind. And allow all 5 to soak into you. There may be the permission to fail, permission to be imperfect, forgiveness for being impatient, the gift of trusting more. Really just noticing what these gifts, what these permissions, what these forgivenesses allow you to ride through, let go of. How do they increase your steadfastness? How do they reduce that second arrow, or the tendency for you to deploy that second arrow? Come back to the breath. Let that all recede slightly. Get steady and anchored once more. And notice the effect of that practice on you. Notice how it leaves you thinking, feeling, intuiting, sensing, whatever's happening. Now, when you're ready, bringing to mind your bigger environment beyond yourself, your bigger network of friends and family, community, work colleagues. And first, what gift or forgiveness would you like to offer them? So in the same way as you were able to receive from yourself, think about what you might give. So this might cause you to think about what gifts you are withholding, or what forgivenesses you are withholding. Some of these might be short term, some of these might be long term. So we carry with us all sorts of pettinesses and grievances and withholdings. And rather than just rushing out to suggest we heal all that, we can just play this little game inside of ourselves, of noticing what we're withholding, how we're contributing to other pain with others. So second one is, what gift or forgiveness can we offer to others? Again, it might be close friends and family, the close network of your life. It might be the wider network of your life. It might just be the world. So notice what comes up. Again, these are great practices in inclining the mind, flavoring the mind, teaching the mind to be more flexible, teaching the mind to let go a bit, less control, less clinging, a more spacious, more flexible approach. Third one, what gift or forgiveness would you like to offer the world? And fourth one, what gift or forgiveness would you like to offer? And fifth, give, receive. How can you give or receive something that reduces harm to yourself or to others around the missteps of life, the difficulties, the little things that don't go as planned or don't go as we'd want them to? So sit now with all 10 jewels around you, all 10 gifts. Those you've received from yourself, those that you've given to others or the wider world. And just notice how it feels to reduce the harm, reduce the sense of always being on our own case or always being on somebody else's tail. You know, that ferocious judging that goes on all day. And we've just loosened the grip of that judging by offering these gifts or thinking about them, or just allowing them to soak into us. So staying in practice, I'd like to just read you a poem, or it's an excerpt. At the still point of the turning world, neither flesh nor fleshless, neither from nor towards. At the still point, there the dance is, but neither arrest nor movement, And do not call it fixity, where past and future are gathered, neither movement from nor towards, neither ascent nor decline, except for the point, the still point. There would be no dance, and there is only the dance. I can only say there we have been, but I cannot say where. And I cannot say how long, for that is to place it in time. The inner freedom from the practical desire, the release from action and suffering, release from the inner and the outer compulsion, yet surrounded by a sense of grace, a white light still and moving. So really slowly and really gently, wiggling, jiggling, stretching, yawning, shouting, cheering, hooraying, whatever. Okay, the recording is stopped.